Welcome to Made for More Ministries podcast, where we're diving into something that affects every single one of us today: relationships. People are complicated. We are all complicated human beings, whether it's friendships, family relationships, marriage. The way that we navigate these connections shapes so much of our lives. Relationships can be beautiful and fulfilling and life-giving, but they can also be messy and complicated and challenging. And so the good news is God gives us clear guidance in His Word on how to build healthy, strong relationships. Although it's easier said than done, and the reality is life is messy. So today we're going to explore some biblical principles for healthy relationships and how keeping God at the center transforms marriages and friendships, and how leaning on Him instead of our own understanding brings a healthier perspective in every relationship that we have. So why do relationships need a biblical foundation? God created us for connection. From the very beginning, we see this truth in Genesis 2:18. It says, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." We were never meant to do life alone. Friendships, family, romantic relationships are all a part of God's design. But because we live in a broken world, relationships often come with challenges: miscommunication, hurt feelings, unmet expectations, and even betrayal. So when we try to navigate relationships based on our own wisdom, we can easily fall into cycles of frustration. But when we can lean on God's wisdom, everything changes. So keeping God at the center of your relationship, whether it's marriage, friendship, family relationship, the healthiest relationships are the ones that are centered on God. And there are times where it can be challenging, or maybe one is committed more than the other for that purpose. But in Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6, it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." This is so true in marriage. There have been times in my relationship where if I relied only on my own emotions and understanding, things would have gotten messy or complicated. But when my husband and I lean on God's wisdom rather than our own, it brings such a healthier perspective. Instead of reacting out of frustration, we need to pause and ask, how would God want us to handle this? Instead of allowing pride to keep us from apologizing, we need to humble ourselves and seek unity in whatever manner that looks like. Instead of expecting each other to fill every need, we got to recognize that God can truly satisfy our hearts. So when God is at the center, our relationships become stronger, more grace-filled, more peaceful. Love the way God loves. The Bible's definition of love is completely different from the world's definition. The world sees love as a feeling, something temporary that can fade. But God's love, agape love, it's unconditional, sacrificial, and unshakable. In 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4 through 7, this is actually the series of verses that we wanted shared at our wedding. It tells us what real love looks like. It says, "Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres." This isn't just for romantic relationships. This applies to friendships, family relationships, and even just how we treat strangers. We should love all people as God's children. If we want to have healthy relationships, we need to love the way God calls us to. With patience when people let us down, with kindness when misunderstandings arise, with humility instead of pride, and with forgiveness, even when it's hard. Communication rooted in wisdom and grace is the most important way for us to communicate with others. Healthy relationships thrive on good communication, but the way that we speak to others can either build them up or tear them down. I love this verse, Proverbs 18:21. It says, "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit." Words can heal or they can hurt. It can be the power of life and death. It is so crazy to think about. You can walk around, I have a headache, I don't feel good, I feel sick, I feel like crap, today's such a crappy day, or today's gonna be a great day. Hey, I received a challenge today, but I believe that something good is gonna come out of today. If we want to build strong relationships, we need to practice speaking with kindness, even when we're frustrated, listening before reacting, which is harder for some than others. James 1:19 reminds us everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Choosing words that encourage each other rather than tear them down. Even when they're intended to be a joke, they may still be discouraging and tearing someone down ultimately. Also, it's important to have healthy friendships that align with your faith. Not every friendship is life-giving. Some relationships pull us closer to God, some maybe are a little bit more neutral, and others can lead us further from Him. In Proverbs 13:20, it says, "Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm." The people we surround yourself with influence our faith, our mindset, and our choices. And if we want healthy relationships, we need to surround ourselves with people who encourage us spiritually, be intentional about friendships that build us up rather than tear us down, and be the kind of friend to others who reflects Christ. We were told a long time ago, you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around with the most. And sometimes that could be slightly out of your control. Maybe it's two or 3-year-olds or a coworker you have to sit next to. But with what's in your control, who you're spending time with or spending more or less than others is going to determine the kind of person that you are. Another important factor is forgiveness and grace in your relationships. No relationship is perfect. People will disappoint us, and we will disappoint others, unfortunately. But one of the most powerful ways that we can keep relationships healthy is through forgiveness. And it is sometimes one of the hardest things that we can do. And sometimes we got to do it over and over again. Colossians 3:13 says, "Bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you." Forgiveness doesn't mean excusing toxic behavior, but it does mean letting go of the bitterness, choosing to heal rather than to hold on to that resentment, and reflecting the same grace that God gives to us. And I understand that there might need to be boundaries, but there can still be boundaries and forgiveness and letting go of that bitterness. If Jesus, who was perfect, could forgive those who betrayed and crucified him, we are called to extend that same grace to others. Protecting your marriage with biblical principles is important. Marriage is one of the most sacred relationships God has given us. And when we keep God at the center, it creates a foundation that can withstand any challenge. Ecclesiastes 4:12 says, "Though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken." That 3rd strand is God. When you invite him into your marriage, your relationship is strengthened. Some ways to keep God at the center of your marriage might be praying together on a regular basis and prioritizing time with each other. And sometimes you got to put it in the calendar. At this time, at 8 o'clock tomorrow night, we are hanging out. And sometimes it's just choosing to handle conflict with grace and encouraging each other spiritually. Help each other grow in faith. Marriage is not about perfection. Nobody ever will be perfect in their marriage. It's about choosing to love, serve, and honor each other every single day with Christ at the center. So last final encouragement, God's love guides every relationship. Healthy relationships don't happen by accident. They take intentionality, wisdom, and most importantly, keeping God at the center. Whether it's in your marriage or friendships or family, I just encourage you to do a few things. Number 1, love like Christ. Communicate with grace. Surround yourself with godly influences. Forgive even when it's hard or feels impossible. And trust that God's wisdom is greater than your own. When you surrender your relationships to God, He strengthens them in ways that you never imagined. So I hope today's episode encouraged you to pursue healthier, God-centered relationships. If this message spoke to you, would you share it with someone who might need the same encouragement? And until next time, keep loving, keep growing, and keep putting God at the center of every relationship. God bless you.